Good evening, how are you? This is Ngobani Zondo. Once again, welcome to the Real Zondo Commission. I want to explain why it is important for Zimbabwe to look to the West, to go back to Washington, and not only Zimbabwe, but the rest of Africa. I want to explain to you that any other plan to look into Russia or China is going to backfire and is not going to work. Okay, right now in Zimbabwe, the Zimbabwe situation is like this. The Zimbabwe government, under Robert Mugabe, had a fallout with the Western world following the land grabs. All right. So after the sanction, Robert Mugabe said we have a look east policy, which means that Zimbabwe was going to be trading with China. All right. Now, the problem with that is that China is not your big brother. China is not there to develop you. China is there to develop China. China is there to grow China. And there's nothing wrong with that. There is no all-rounder network. For example, China doesn't even own what do you call that system? China doesn't own the SWIFT system. Okay, the International Bank of Settlements. It is in Switzerland. All right. The monetary system, the World Bank, the United Nations. China doesn't have a stronghold on that. So if you want to be a global player, you need to come to the table where the global leaders are. But then if you go with the rogue organizations or rogue countries like Russia, you will find yourself ever fighting a never-ending war. America has got enough resources to drag the war forever, baby. Decade after decade after decade. Look at Cuba. Look at the underdevelopment in Cuba when that nation is just next to Miami, which is very rich. So you do understand, if America puts some sanctions on you, you need to think twice and try to understand how you can realign your country well for your people to succeed and not be egoistic and be anti-American for the sake of appealing like a strong man, when your strength is only going to bring your people into poverty, keep your people into poverty decade after decade. Robert Mugabe kept us in poverty decade after decade until now. ZANU-PF is carrying on keeping us in poverty, all because of their hatred for the West, which is actually just an ego trip, really. An ego trip can cost generations. Now, I want to bring an end to that. Okay. I want us as Zimbabwe to come to a place of humbling ourselves and bring an end to that and join the real global order that is going to bring real prosperity to Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe needs a Damascus moment to understand that outside the system of the so-called US hegemon, outside that system, there is no other life. To understand, whatever seems to appear to be life, do not be fooled by rogue states like Syria, Russia, and some countries in the Middle East that have got this anti-American mantra as if there's some liberation heroes that are freeing themselves from the evil capitalistic system. No. Those are just despots who undermine human rights and keep their very own people poor and desperate. And they've got no intention of building their own communities. If they had, there would be peace in Syria. Do you understand? In Africa, African leaders need to understand, make a decision. Do you still want to keep your people in perpetual poverty, or you want to bring them towards and align them with a system of capitalism, a system that has proven to work? Now, one of the things that I want to prove in this video is that capitalism is a best system for any country that wants to survive and to grow. And other countries are capitalists undercover, like China. From 1970, when the Chinese premier went to Japan and went to Washington, when he got out of China and began to realize what the good things that capitalism has brought to Japan, the advancement, the nationalization of Japan, he went back to China and they began good relations with Washington. That was when the growth of China came about. So if you're a Zimbabwean sitting in Harare or wherever you are and you're thinking we must go to China and not Washington, you must realize that the growth of China, the power of China itself, every glory of China is because of its relations with Washington. Before that, China was a poor state. It tried this communism or socialism, whatever you want to call it. It didn't work until they decided that it's capitalism and it's being pro-Western that will take China out of poverty. And therefore they were able in the past 50 years to take more than 1 billion Chinese out of poverty. And therefore it is the same thing. If it is the same for China, it's going to be the same for Africa, and it's going to be the same for Zimbabwe. After 42 years or 43 years of suffering in Zimbabwe, it's time for us to do what Chinese did. If we want to take the playbook of China, don't be lied to. The playbook of China is not being anti-Western. No. Study your history very well. The playbook of China is actually moving from being anti-American and becoming pro-American, coming to terms with America and say, you know what, the only system that works is capitalism, because capitalism is where the global superpowers and the centers of commerce reside. To understand, if you want to be outside that system, you're not going to work. It's just like a normal system, like a body. Your body is a system. If you chop your finger from your body, it will die. Understand? It will rot. Why? Because it has been cut off from this one unit, the system that works. So the system, its center of power is Washington. So Harare and everybody needs to understand that. If we do not understand that there is no economic policy or that is pro-black that exclude the whole system of the world. If you're excluded from the whole system of the world, you can't survive. You can't survive on China, because China itself survives because of being part of the global system, which is led by United States. So it is foolery, propaganda, lying to people, saying we are going to have a look east policy, looking into China, of which who is China looking at? China is looking at USA. And who is USA looking at? USA is looking at USA. That's where the buck starts, baby. So you just go there where the buck starts. You don't go to China. It's a misadvised ideology by politicians who are not interested in uplifting their people out of poverty. Now, politicians, when you are ready to uplift your people out of poverty, I'm saying when you are ready to uplift your people out of poverty, not stealing from them, because it is possible to run a failed state and have a few hundreds of politicians who are feeding well, because they will feed themselves off the people and have millions that are suffering. So what I'm saying, that if any politician who is worth their salt is ready now to get their people out of poverty, they will plug their whole country into the one system that works, the system of the free world, the system under the leadership of Washington and the mighty USA and the British Commonwealth, of which Zimbabwe has got historical ties with. Even the Commonwealth itself has got itself plugged into this one global system of the free world. So who are you, Zimbabwe, to think that you are going to be in ties with China? You know, China isn't denying that it has got ties with America. China has got strong ties with America. Don't be fooled. China is where it is because of USA. So if you are a fool and you think that China is going to take over the world and therefore you're going to look into China, China is militarily surrounded by United States. On the military combat, United States will win 100-0. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Okay. If United States had to throw sanctions at China, the Chinese economy will be bleeding. Do you understand? Don't be fooled that China is the second biggest economy in the world. Just because it's a big country, its population is large. Do you understand? So that is what it is. The size of an economy means nothing. Let's talk about influence in the actual real power and things that really move the needle. What moves the needle is not the size of your economy. What moves the needle is the size of your military strength, your financial prowess. United States moves finances, they move money. That's why I said my proposal for a new Zimbabwe is going to cost us an 80 billion United States dollars, which is nothing to Washington, when Washington is ready to fight a war against Russia, which is becoming a global pimple on the hegemony of the United States. And I propose my new government that I will lead, seeing therefore that other Zimbabweans are not willing to lead that way, seeing that the current government of Zimbabwe is not interested in this proposition, but is still drunk in just not thinking straight, and seeing that Nelson Chamisa has got no clue of what he's doing, except that people just say, to do what? He must come in and do what? What does Chamisa promise you? You know, I've been listening to the guy for many years. I'm trying to figure out what exactly does he want? What vision has he got for Zimbabwe? I recognize that he has got no vision for Zimbabwe. He's got no plan except to remove ZANU-PF. So what? You know, people thought that if we remove Robert Mugabe, things will be better. He was removed. Then there was Emerson Mnangagwa. So what? So now you say that you must remove ZANU-PF. So, for what? It doesn't mean anything to me. Whether there is ZANU-PF or there's no ZANU-PF, to me it means absolutely nothing. What matters is policy. What is a political policy? What is the economic policy? What is a foreign policy, Mr. Chamisa? Nothing, zero. Therefore, I am coming into that space, therefore, boldly saying so, as Ngobani Zondo, my name, to tell you that this is my vision for Zimbabwe, and these are the policies that I think are going to work. I believe they are going to work. Not just these politicians who just fight for political positions for the sake of having a political position without a clear direction where they want to take the country towards. We need proper leadership with a clear mindset to know where are we going. Don't tell me you want to remove ZANU-PF. It means absolutely nothing. I don't care whether ZANU-PF is in power or ZANU-PF is out of power. What I care about is the policies. What policies are we undertaking? And I'm saying that the policy of looking to China is a misinformed policy. We need to look to Washington. And Emerson Mnangagwa needs to look to Washington. And the Zimbabwe military must know that we now need to engage the US Army to capacitate you to be able to fight against the Russian insurgency that will come against you. As we find more diamonds and more oil in Zimbabwe, you need a stable partner which you can trust, which is the United States, which have got systems, okay, that work. Systems that have worked, that have been proven to work over time, that can be trustworthy. Trust is power. Power isn't really the size of a military. You see, people are misadvised when they say that the Russian military is strong. Russia has got nuclear weapons. It means nothing. What really has got value is trust. The reason why the United States dollar will never fall. People talk about the imminent crash of the United States dollar. Baby, you are lost. The United States dollar is gaining power at the moment as the Federal Reserve is raising rates. The United States dollar is coming back to invest in the US Treasury bills. That is why it's becoming stronger and stronger. And that is deliberate, as the Fed is fighting inflation. The use of the dollar will continue unabated and stronger. Why? Because United States institutions can be trusted. The value of anything, of any governance, is trust. You understand? Therefore, you cannot trust Russia. You cannot put your country under the wings of Russia. They cannot be trusted. I thank Russia for helping us fight the war of liberation. But there's a lot of trust deficit within the Russian political and economic system. China is still a developing nation. You cannot really robustly build a nation by relying on China alone. Look at the countries in the Southeastern Asia. South Asian, the Asian countries, all the way from you can talk about the Philippines, Singapore, Vietnam, and Malaysia, and all of those in that whole region. One could say that they've benefited from the rise of China, but that China benefit did not come in a vacuum. They already had good relations with America, with the USA, and therefore China exported some of its value that it got from USA exported it to the rest of Asian countries. I mean, Thailand was already a big powerhouse in producing hard drives before Chinese miracle. To understand, and then we get a country like Singapore, which is an ex-British colony, which is successful, and they've got ties with Britain, good ties with Britain, which is part of the Washington Consensus. And they're able to tap in from the wealth of Britain, USA, and also China. With their shipping port there, they are able to leverage on all that good relations with the first world countries, and then adding on China on top of that. So Zimbabwe needs also the same model operandi in order for you to succeed. Can Chamisa deliver that to you? Does he even understand that? Or he's thinking, I just want power. Power for what? It means absolutely jack to me. Why do you want power? When you want power, there must be a reason for it. You must be able to defend yourself. Why? What are you going to do? What vision do you have for Zimbabwe? On the contrary, I do have a vision for Zimbabwe, which I can stand for, which I can explain. And I can explain my position and I can defend my position with examples, with a robust understanding of the economy and the politics and the geopolitics that is involved, with a developmental agenda and a developmental plan, a sound economic plan that is well researched and well presented, so that we know where we are going. Yeah, I'm going to make another video. I've got 11 points. 11 points of my $80 billion plan. How we are going to distribute it across the economy to get Zimbabwe running. And how I am going to turn Zimbabwe's economy, which is a $20 billion economy, into a $500 billion economy in the next 5 to 7 years. That is possible. You're gonna say it's impossible, but I'll tell you why. I'll tell you how. I'll give you an economic rationale. The first one I told you, that the nonsense of looking east. That was Robert Mugabe's political way of staying in power. I'm sure he knew it wouldn't work, but he said it so that he could stay in power for longer. But it doesn't work. Looking east doesn't work. Looking into Russia doesn't work. Telling me that the Russia is powerful militarily, it doesn't work. What works is it's not just the military power. Military power, yes, it is important, but it's not just that. It is the robustness of your institutions, and the robust institutions are created or are sustained by trust. We've got a trust deficit in Russia and China, but in the United States, you can find the real trust that has been tried and tested. So on my next video, I am talking to you about my 11-point plan for the resuscitation of the economy of Zimbabwe, building Zimbabwe and making it a very strong and powerful nation. This is a blueprint for me. Hallelujah. So I will meet you on the next video.